Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're super excited to talk about disruption and an opportunity, how the past 2 years have transformed our IoT appetite. Before we start, I want to let you know that we are going to be taking Q&A at the end of the session after we've gone around the panelists with some questions. We're going to take the questions from the Q&A button that can be found at the bottom of the screen. So if you have questions anytime during the presentation, by all means, put them in through the Q&A button and we'll get to them at the end and we'll put them to our panelists. Now, before we start with questions, I'd like to go around and have the panelists do a short introduction on themselves. So Laurence, can you start us off?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Hi, I'm Laurence Liu, and it's a pleasure for me to represent Tribe Property Technologies on this virtual stage. Quick background on myself, I have a 25-year professional sales career. Last 20 has been in technology. The last 15 has been in real estate technologies. Also love to give a little background on our company. Tribe is a publicly traded property tech company that combines property management services and locally built technology for multifamily buildings. Basically where we are unique is this combination of technology and services. And we feel that we provide a holistic solution for real estate developers, builders, landlords, residents, and property managers. So we currently manage over 400 buildings across Canada. And in addition to that, my department explores and implements a variety of IoT technologies for our target audiences. That also includes the developers and landlords, property management audiences as well. So awesome. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, it's great to have you today. Elliot, do you want to go next?
Sorry, just taking myself off of mute there. Yeah, so my name's Elliot Samuel. I'm Vice President of Sales and PropTech here at Eddy Solutions. Just a little background on Eddy. We're a smart water monitoring company focused on working with a variety of stakeholders in the real estate industry, from constructors to operators to the residents. Ensuring that people are protected from the threat of water damage and also get greater insight into their consumption patterns as well. So we work holistically at trying to solve those problems and working with a variety of partners that are looking to scale, cross-functional use cases and really expand on points of efficiency throughout these buildings.
Awesome, great to have you today. Tess, can you introduce yourself next?
Hello, it's great to be back at IoT PropTech. I was here last year, a fantastic panel I'm excited about this afternoon. My name is Tess Van Thielen. I'm the Vice President of Advanced Services for Rogers for Business. In my role, I lead the strategy, product development, product management, as well as day-to-day operations for data center and IoT portfolios. The Advanced Services team is really accountable for bringing to market IoT solutions, leveraging our 5G network capabilities that drive innovation and automation for Canadian businesses.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for joining us. Julie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Julie Morin. I'm an IoT solutions lead at Microsoft Canada. I focus oftentimes on smart infrastructure organizations and clients and partners. I'm super happy to be here again this year. Looking forward to the discussion today.
Awesome, awesome. I'm Kevin Crowe. I'm your moderator. I'm the EVP of Client Experience at Longview Systems. We're an IT solution provider, but I'm also a member of the Alberta IoT board. So very passionate about this subject. I'm so glad we have a panel on it and want to jump right in. And so the first question I want to talk about is, let's just start with a general question. And Tess, why don't you kick us off? What are you seeing overall in terms of IoT trends right now?
Yeah, so IoT, I always get excited when I start talking about IoT because you have to wave your hand to get me to stop. But
good.
IoT and the evolution and innovation happening right now is super exciting. When we implemented 4G networks, that really opened up a lot of exciting opportunities for monitoring and remote management. And that's really what we see driving a lot of the scale and activity happening in IoT today. And that's what's really driving a lot of the activity in smart building and asset management, smart construction. That's really about monitoring and remote management. But what we're super excited about and what we're really seeing a lot of innovation and activity on is really centered around moving from that monitoring and remote management to full automation. And there's a couple of really interesting, confluence of advancements in technology that are driving the ability to move from monitoring and management to full automation. So 5G is one of the core foundational pillars that are allowing that. So the 5G network that gives us the latency, capacity and speed needed to support different types of applications. We also see edge computing as a new kind of innovation, which is really bringing the computing power from some central location and really bringing that computing power close to the edge device or to the customer. The third thing that's happening at the moment is really the proliferation of sensors. So we're seeing so many more types of sensors and also very, very cheap sensors being available to the market. So people can start building sensors that do different things. They can do that cheaply. And we're also seeing battery life really being extended at the moment. So instead of a couple of year battery, we're now starting to see batteries be available for 20, 25, or 30 years. So we can find a cheap sensor, we can set that up, we can put a battery that's long-term in it, and we can sense something for potentially a generation, which is very exciting. And the fourth key innovation that's happening right now is around AI and machine learning. And that really gives us the ability for machines to start making those decisions. So instead of remotely monitoring things by humans, we're now suddenly giving the decision making over to machines and to AI. And that really is what we're seeing driving a lot of the activity and a lot of the excitement around IoT today.
Yeah, that's incredible stuff. Julie, would you like to jump in here as well?
Sure, we're definitely seeing like a lot more value creation with IoT innovation. Use cases that are popping up every day that we've never seen before. And some of them are repurposed use cases from before that now we're augmenting for more orchestration and automation, as Tess has mentioned. But certainly the common use cases that we're seeing is a lot of things around carbon monitoring for sustainability initiatives, occupancy utilization, spatial analysis. Those use cases are evolving pretty quickly right now. And we're also seeing the concept of the grid interactive building. It's a fast growing use case where clients are looking for those energy efficiencies, introducing battery storage and the introduction of EV charging stations and solar PV at the building sites. That's providing a great opportunity for orchestration and automation and IoT. We're seeing, acceleration of use cases across a variety of different industries that are quite common. So what we're also seeing is, the differentiator between customers' ability to execute on their own, whether they want things, they want to build their own solution or whether they're looking for packaged solutions. So it's certainly a new way of thinking of how they go to market, but also thinking about ways to monetize their existing solutions to address industry problems. And so we're definitely seeing that trend as well, that customer to partner transition.
Wow, that's incredible stuff. Elliot, do you have anything to add to this as well?
Yeah, I'd be echoing a lot of the same points that have already been mentioned. So many great points here, but yeah, to that effect, what we've actually started to see is a lot of cross-functional use cases and really expansion amongst so many stakeholders who, over the course of, specifically in PropTech, the life cycle of an asset, there are so many people that can gain value out of some of this technology, and if it's designed, to address those needs and be agile enough to address those needs over the course of years and over the course of different use cases, then, to the point before, we're repurposing information, repurposing technology in order to address what the needs are as that environment changes, and having infrastructure that's capable of supporting that, and also solutions that are capable of taking that on over time is really part of that secret sauce within the investment side that we're seeing a lot of people hone in on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laurence, what about your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think a lot of the panelists here talked about the growth in the products that are being offered, and obviously the future seems amazing in terms of what these sensors and devices are going to be able to do. I want to talk a little bit about the acceptance and adoption of Internet of Things and IoT devices. I remember back in the day where you had to buy a certain central hub to communicate with all these other devices. You had to layer on a certain wireless protocol. I'm probably butchering it, but essentially the way that the connectivity is today has really driven the acceptance and adoption within the home. Not only are you now able to just connect seamlessly on Bluetooth in your own home internet connection, but with the advent, as Tess mentioned, with 5G, that just takes it to another level. You may not even need anything in your home anymore, and you'll be able to seamlessly connect. So that ease of connectivity, along with the growth in products, the increased utility within the home, makes it really does drive those adoption rates for IoT devices.
Yeah, absolutely. obviously hard these days not to talk about COVID, but the one thing we want to talk about here today is really what has COVID done for IoT? What have we seen from kind of an adoption, a transformation in the marketplace? And Elliot, can you start us off on this conversation?
Sure, love to. Yeah, sort of, I guess, echoing a little bit of what Laurence is saying, like what we've really seen over the past, I guess, 18 months or so has been rapid acceptance and rapid expansion, at least in terms of investigating these technologies in order to validate it, because essentially COVID's disrupted every single environment across the board, whether you're talking about residential, commercial, retail. All of these environments have had to learn how to operate in conditions that they've really never operated in before, you know, with density numbers at times that they've never had, and had to navigate, you know, work stoppages, the lack of ability to get access to locations, and they're relying more heavily on technology, on IoT devices to be that crutch in order to bridge that gap, to essentially be that hammer and nail. Because ultimately, when you're talking about what disrupts marketplaces, nothing disrupts it as rapidly as technology does. You know, ultimately, everything else is a product of incremental growth, but this really sent a shock to the system in every environment, which will have ripple effects that we still have not seen yet, and will continue to evolve over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Laurence, your thoughts?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed, obviously pushed me into the home, pushed the kids into the home, pushed significant others into the home, and now you're sharing one pipe, one you know, likely not so robust internet connection to do your multiple Zoom calls for your kids, for yourself, for your significant other, as well as handle Netflix and all the other devices that are in the home. So the understanding and the importance of speed within the home has greatly matured and been accelerated. And I will tie this into the IoT side of things a little bit later, but I remember 15 years ago, we lit up our first fiber optic multifamily building in downtown Vancouver at a time when 5 megabits per second was great. And I remember people asking me, why do we need 1,000? Like, what is that for? T1 and T2 connections. I don't know if you all remember that, but that was a thing in the business world. What's a T2 connection? It's 2 megs. But huge credit to the developers and builders of new communities out there for 15 years ago, for seeing the need to upgrade the wiring to fiber optics and other types of transmission devices that will bring that bigger pipe into the homes, because it really did lay the foundation for all the in-home needs that are needed today for the IoT devices and the proliferation of technology within the home. So yeah, so COVID really advanced that knowledge. And thankfully, we were in better shape to prepare for that than you know, we could have been.
Yeah, great points. Julie?
Yeah, I think one of the major things has been the organizational alignment within our customers, where the OT folks had to really collaborate with the IT folks. So we call that OT and IT convergence. You know, 3 to 4 years ago, we were pitching to the OT side of the business with property owners for the use of IoT for a variety of different use cases, like bathroom cleaning compliance or space utilization of office space. And at the time, there was like a limited incentive for a lot of those customers to really take the investment into those projects. But now we're seeing the use of IoT technology like space utilization sensors, room booking, along with sensors that detect the cleaning frequency or how many times a Purell sanitizer is dispensing, you know, some of this hand sanitizer. So those are all types of technology that, you know, property owners weren't really interested in 3 years ago, but now with COVID, it's actually accelerated the adoption of different types of technology that was previously available to them. And we're also seeing in other verticals like manufacturing, where, you know, they may have had less staff, so they wanted less people coming into the office, so that they're really transitioning into Industry 4.0 that's being fueled and driven by COVID.
Absolutely. And Tess, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of what Julie is seeing. And the thing that I'm probably most inspired about with what's happened with COVID, and there's been many, many, many challenges that COVID has driven. But, one of the silver linings that I keep looking to is the fact that for many organizations, things that they thought were going to take a really long time, they realized the impetus and they actually got a lot of things done very, very quickly. There were some companies that moved thousands of people to working from home within days. There were people who transformed their manufacturing plants to ensure that less people were coming inside, and so they were automating. And so what we see now is, Canadian businesses are continuing even today to look for ways to automate. They're looking for ways to transform their businesses. There's no longer kind of that underlying fear that moving more to automation is going to somehow be a cost impact on the business and not really a huge amount of benefit, because they've really now seen the benefits that technology can bring to their businesses. They're seeing what it can drive in terms of operational efficiencies, and they're seeing the benefits for their customers and for their staff in automating certain things. And so we're really seeing customers are excited about innovation. They're excited about technology transformation, and they're willing to move very quickly. And that's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We move to the next question, and you've been talking about it, obviously through the pandemic. It forced organizations to look at business continuity, disaster recovery, respond, maybe look at, are they mature in that area? Do they need to do more? Julie, what are you seeing around that specific space?
Well, I'd have to say that schools and organizations had to really pivot fast to spin up cloud services and online conferencing tools like Teams or Zoom. So there's been a big variety of shift in the industries. We talk about first responders during the pandemic, but no one really talks about the digital first responders at tech companies or infrastructure companies that really had to make sure that they rallied together to ensure that customers, IT departments, HR, finance, all the different private sector and public sector organizations, they had to figure out a new way of working from home. And so now we're on the other, we're hopefully we're on the other side of this, but now we're dealing with people wanting the flexibility of working from home or at the office, or a combination of both with a hybrid approach. So I do think that the use of space in the office will change forever, where employers who want their employees in the office will have to offer some sort of incentive or create a really amazing office environment to encourage people to want to come into the office. So it's quite fascinating to see the pace of innovation, but also seeing how companies are adopting to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like when it comes to disaster recovery specifically, I would say that this has caused people, again, that shock to the system forced people to be more forward thinking. It forced people to think, well, maybe there's another black swan around the corner, and we're not necessarily as safe as we once were. And we we have to really think about our contingency planning. We have to really think about, what is our approach? How sound is it? And how susceptible are we to, potential failure in these areas? And, are we actually instituting technology as well? One of the careful balances is, are we instituting technology as well that's good to respond to this challenge as well as respond to future challenges? Or are we just being reactive to what is happening right now? And that's also a very, careful balance that organizations need to play. And that's really to a lot of adoption across the board, as we've seen over the last little while, at least in the last 18.
Yeah, absolutely. Tess, do you have some thoughts around this area?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is, as people are starting to imagine returning to the new normal, whatever that's going to look like. And I agree with Julie that there's, people are now looking for flexibility. I don't know that a model where you have to stay at home all the time, and I'm in my basement right now. My kids just came home from school, so you might hear them running around. I don't know that I want to be here every single day, but I do want the flexibility to be able to choose based on my schedule what may work best for me. And so as businesses are thinking about what the future looks like, now we need to move to flexibility. From before just being able to provide continuity, now we really have to move into flexibility. And so I agree with what Elliot was saying about really trying to imagine how you're going to future-proof, because now the expectations of staff, the expectations of customers are completely different. How they interact with their spaces is now completely different. And there's a new high level of expectations on safety and security, no matter where you are. So I want to go into a store and understand and know that the air quality is being monitored. I want to know that the space is being monitored so there isn't an aggregation or congregation of people that might potentially put me in danger. So I'm looking more and more for assurances from my employer, from the places that I frequent with my business as a customer, that I'm safe and I'm being taken care of. And all of those challenges can be solved with technology and solutions. And so what's exciting is there is real opportunity for people to be able to provide their staff and their customers with that safety and that assurance, and also really start thinking about how they provide the flexibility and forward thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Laurence, do you have some thoughts to share?
Yeah, reiterating what most of the panelists have just said, the technology portion of our company has definitely softened the disruption of the pandemic for not only our team members, but for our customers as well. Just by doing what technology is meant to do. It's meant to lower those personal touch points. It's there to drive greater efficiencies and really utilize the cloud for the access of information and data and improve that connectivity with your audiences. So yeah, I completely agree. One of our tools is actually something that helps with developers have less touch points with their buyers when they actually walk through the home. In Ontario, they call it a pre-delivery inspection. But yeah, we did see a massive uptick from the pandemic to look for technology as a solution to not only protect their individual workers, but to also protect their audience and their customers as well. So yeah, definitely, I completely agree.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the future, right? The past 18 months have shown us how hard it is. There's, as Elliot said, black swan events and curveballs out there, but we know it's uncertain. But what predictions would you make around IoT? Maybe what trends are you seeing? You know, maybe what are you super excited about when it comes to IoT in the future? And why don't we start with Julie?
Great, thank you. Well, I do believe that the work of the future is changing for all industries. Everyone's adapted. I think how spaces and offices are designed will definitely be a different way how they're architected and engineered. You know, you're going to see more air quality focus for buildings, more filtration, more probably multiple systems. You know, there were some hospitals that had problems like when it came to the pandemic. How do you isolate the different rooms in a hospital to make sure that the air is not recirculating with people that don't have COVID? So I definitely think that the architects and engineers are coming up with some really intelligent ways as what the buildings of the future will look like. But also I think that IoT is going to play a greater role in how the workplace operates, whether it comes for the bathroom cleaning compliance to, office utilization to, manufacturing customers who need to do more with less staff. You know, we also saw with this pandemic that there was a staff shortages. So companies had to figure out how to stretch their staff a little bit further. So I think the role of artificial intelligence is going to come in with some of the IoT devices that are out there in the marketplace. And I do also believe that, innovation with digital twin, the metaverse, what's coming out with that's going to create a lot of excitement, a lot of opportunity for private and public sector. And, I do think that the importance of supply chain technology will continue to need to accelerate, especially with what we're seeing with what's happening in the British Columbia region. So supply chain is going to be broken up. So I think technology that will support, supply chain, digital twins, the metaverse, and smart building, I think, those are going to be what we're going to see more of in the next 18 months.
Gotcha. Laurence, would love your opinion.
Yeah, read recently that in 2021, Canada is expecting 401,000 immigrants into our country. I think they're already at pretty much close to 390,000. This is going to bring some highly skilled immigrants into our country who will bring new business ideas, new technologies, and possibly be a part of that IoT proliferation. On the flip side, our housing's at historically critical levels. Housing supply is low. Canadian housing has not kept up with population growth. US alone, there's a study by Realtor.com that they're short 5.25 million homes currently. So my prediction is that in a nutshell, more housing is going to be needed. There's going to be more densification. And with that, there's going to be more technology that will be placed into these buildings, and they will be playing an even greater role at the construction stage to the management stage of these buildings. And there's even today, there's a series of IoT devices and technologies and sensors that can really help each of these groups throughout that life cycle of a building. So what are they going to be looking for? Obviously, IoT devices will bring better ROI for them, regardless of whether you're constructing the home or even for our property management teams. There's going to be better risk mitigation and overall just finding ways to improve the comfort and livability of homes moving forward, because we all know the way that the home is utilized has completely changed, and maybe it will continue to be that way for a long time coming. How do we now adapt to those new needs for not only the new homes, but for the existing ones as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, your thoughts on the future of IoT?
Yeah, just sort of expanding on all the great points given here, as it relates to immigration, there's always been historical connection between increased demand and increased development as it relates to immigration rates. And speaking about what Julie was mentioning about supply chain technologies, it's been a massive challenge, especially in the development community, when you start to see the cost of building material increase by 20 to 40%, depending on the commodity over time. You can't increase the cost of rents. You can't increase the cost of the units by that same amount. So what you're going to start to see in terms of trends is smaller units, and that will also prove challenging as it relates to these multi-residential environments where people are spending way more time at home, working from home. It's going to have to be built up with far more robust amenities, and it's going to, once again, more people, more density. It's going to drive further need for technology investment, and developers are going to be facing significant challenges. They're going to have to rationalize their spend on these technologies, and where we'll ultimately see the real results. And I think the largest scale adoption is where you start to see multiple stakeholders again being vested in these technologies. And then you'll start to see, as a result of that, some subsidizations by the right parties who are receiving benefits, adjacent to the adopters of the technology. And then from there, what you're going to start to see is really rapid adoption as standards start to change, because people are, again, they're concerned about future proofing. They're concerned about being susceptible to an issue like this in the future, and knowing that you're going to have more people in smaller spaces means you better have a lot more for them to do, and a lot more amenities, a lot more opportunity for them to have services brought to their units, and really robust infrastructure, as was mentioned before by Tess, so that you can support the entertainment needs, as well as the educational needs, the business needs that everybody is requiring, because now every single home has now just become a multi-use facility, right? And so knowing that, how does that change the way we think about our homes, the way that homes need to be designed, and the way that we live and interact with those environments?
Yeah, incredible stuff. Tess, we'd love your opinion as well.
Yeah, I do want to jump on, a thread and a theme that's been going through this conversation so far is that need for the underlying connectivity that really drives and enables, foundationally all of what we're talking about. And, through COVID, I think the latest public stat that I saw was in Canada, our networks increased their usage by 40% year over year. Historically, that's closer to a 10 to 12% increase in usage. And so for the networks, and I'm going to just, for the whole industry, I'm not just going to plug for Rogers here, but as a whole industry, we were able to adapt and support that need that Canadians had to stay connected. And in some countries, what we saw is we actually saw some of those networks degrade to a point where it was very dangerously close to those networks actually collapsing. And so some countries didn't fare in the same way that Canada did, with the ability to pivot to working from home, school online, and being supported in the way they did with the telecommunications ecosystem and industry that we have in Canada. So we're very lucky. We've got some really robust networks across all of the carriers, and it was a very inspiring time to be working in connectivity at the beginning of COVID. You were supporting people through that kind of change and transition. But now back off of my ad for the off of my ad for the industry.
It's a great ad for the industry.
From a prediction, I will say one of the main things that we're seeing is a real shift from products to services or solutions. So customers are really looking for outcomes. So they want to be able to buy a full managed service. They want to buy a full solution. They want to buy those outcomes. And so we're really seeing customers come and say, here's a business challenge that we have. How do we transform? How do we change? What technology can help us get to these types of outcomes? And the second thing that we're really seeing is a real focus on privacy and security. And that need for automation, that need for transformation, that need for guaranteed bandwidth and security and safety has led to a real huge shift in the market and a desire for things like wireless private networks. And so what we're seeing is large organizations implementing wireless private networks in industrial sites, mining, oil and gas, to be able to provide that safety and security layer so they can connect all of the multitude of devices and really transform their organizations and be supported with that, safety and security net of connectivity of a wireless private network. And so that's a big change that we're seeing in the industry in the last little while.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And I want to let everybody know for Q&A, we're coming up to our last question. So by all means, please look at the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and get your questions in. I want to keep pushing on this concept of kind of the future and innovation and what we're seeing with IoT and really talk about, great innovation is about disruption, right? If it's a really strong, powerful innovation, it's going to create disruption. And so, Julie, maybe you can start us off, what do you see as the disruption coming from IoT and around that innovation area?
Well, I certainly think that seamless integration and the ability to plug and play will be critical, but also computing at the edge to take off the stress off the networks and being able to make decisions at the edge without having the cloud to make those decisions. But certainly, IoT device will probably spend less time communicating with the cloud and react more locally and operate reliability, even when they're offline for an extended period of time. A great example of that would be a video surveillance security system that have video analytics on top of it. So, if you see something that could be a threat to a facility, you may want to send an alert immediately. You may not want that information to be processed in the cloud. So I do think, computing at the edge is critical. I talked about metaverse earlier. I do believe that's going to play a very interesting role, as well as digital twins for physical built environments. But also making sure that we're leveraging the tools like machine learning and artificial intelligence. I also believe that companies will either fail to survive or they will thrive in the next 5 years because of their willingness or their not willingness to accelerate with digital transformation. So I do think that's going to be quite important. We're also going to see the role of sustainability take front and center, where we're already seeing in some provinces like the province of Quebec, where they're asking their landlords and property management companies to make sure that they're reducing the energy from the buildings from a commercial perspective. So I definitely do see the trends going towards sustainability as well, in addition to the innovation side.
Yeah, gotcha. Laurence, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I want to reiterate what both Julie and Tess had mentioned earlier about AI and machine learning. Love to see where that's going. Being able to utilize the data generated by the sensors and devices in the homes across, portfolios of buildings, especially on our side across North America. But where we really want to see it and where it's definitely going is it allows individuals to be more proactive versus reactive. And when it comes to a property management company that is very keen on the adoption of technology, we really would want to leverage that data to anticipate risk, to predict, and even, of course, repeat the good outcomes that we have in our interactions, not only with the residents, but with the buildings themselves. So definitely see a big part of that to help us to be a little bit more preemptive when we're managing our portfolio of communities. And that will definitely impact the way that we manage in the future. I was in a session earlier and they were talking about insurance premiums, something that hits near and dear to us. Condo insurance premiums in the first quarter of 2021 had double-digit increases. And there are a lot of possibilities, and it's already being done now with leak detection and water shutoffs to be able to impact some of those increases with technology. So definitely something that we are looking into as well, because if we can not only mitigate risk, but also help save at the same time, that's a complete win on our side. Also heard that average loss per claims are in the tens of thousands of dollars. So there is some very good compelling evidence to continue to grow this ability to not only sense and predict and be preemptive, but to also help in those rising costs.
Yeah, great information. Tess, thoughts on innovation and disruption from IoT?
Yeah, I think for me, what's most exciting is we don't yet know what we don't know, right? The proliferation of sensors is going to provide us with access to data that, smart people, smart developers, smart companies are going to find really exciting and innovative ways to leverage and provide value with. When 3G first launched, it had location data available. And that was the first time location data was kind of made available onto mobile handsets or onto a wireless network. And people didn't really know quite what people were going to do with it. It was made available. And now, we have services that give us turn-by-turn directions. We have the ability to track orders and deliveries on our phones as they make their way to us. We have on-demand ride-share services, and all of those are built on or were built on the capability of tracking something where it was. And so as we look to 5G and as we look to, what the new sensors that are being implemented in different places and what that data is going to make available to us, there is so much that's going to be developed and innovated in the next number of years. There's so many things that, we look at today and say, oh, we have no idea what we might do with that piece of data, or we might do with that functionality, or we might do with that service. But somebody is going to find something exciting and it's going to provide a lot of value. And so for me, what's really exciting about working in IoT is meeting the people that are finding these use cases and bringing forward these new and innovative solutions and technology, because the change that we're seeing is incredible, and the change that it's going to implement or impact into society is going to be very, very meaningful in the next number of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, do you want to wrap us up here on innovation and disruption before we go to Q&A?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, in terms of innovation and disruption, I think that what we're going to start to see specifically, and what we've already started to see a lot of, is the expansion of multi-use case and multi-service IoT providers beginning to work more together on multi-use platforms, because this is ultimately what the consumer is driving for and what the consumer needs in order to make this feasible. It's ultimately going to be impossible for the majority of operators, and even if you're thinking about it as an individual consumer, to manage all of these various platforms all together and try to digest all of that information. And what you're starting to see more and more is the convergence of all of these different devices, these networks that are able to work together so that people are able to transfer data back and forth, open up tons of insights cross-functionally that we've never seen before, to Tess's point. And really begin to open up not just predictive efficiencies, but prescriptive as well efficiencies, and start to begin to define, as AI begins to develop more and as the data starts to become more and more robust, that we can start developing more complex data trees. But we'll be able to actually develop a lot more automation that's tied into this, and that will further expand the use case and further expand market acceptance over the next little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, incredible time, right? Just amazing to see all this technology disruption and adoption in such a small period of time. We're going to go to questions. We got several questions here. The first one's for you, Elliot. Do Eddy Solutions and Tribe do business in the US or Canada only?
Hey, well, I guess I'll start that out, and Laurence, you can jump in right after. Eddy Solutions primarily does business in the US and Canada, but we also do business outside within Europe, and are open to other use cases outside and other places as our customers need.
Awesome. Let's go to Laurence next time.
Yeah, so Tribe, we are across Canada currently, but don't put us away for expanding into the US anytime soon. So
Gotcha.
there is a plan to do that.
Gotcha. Next one is about how about healthcare systems as possible clients for IoT during the last 2 years? Do you have any relevant experience? Tess, do you see anything around the healthcare area?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of really interesting, exciting activity in healthcare. And, one of the main things that we're seeing IoT be really, really applicable for is helping people age in home with more support, but without necessarily having people there. So we're seeing a lot of people working on developing solutions that can, without microphones, without cameras, track movement in a location. So there is that privacy and security, but it tracks whether or not there is movement in the house. I actually implemented a bit of a solution in my house just to see how it would work. And I tracked it on the front door to see when the front door opened and closed. And so you can set alarming that says, if grandma leaves after 11 o'clock at night or the door opens after 11 o'clock at night, is that, is that something that you want to know about and be aware of and get alarmed on? So there is a bunch of different solutions, it tracks whether or not you're getting out of bed or staying in bed, that tracks whether or not how often the toilet is being used. And for a lot of elderly people, that's a really big indicator of or an early indicator of some potential health issues. And so we're seeing people start to work on how we can package this up. And the area that's probably presenting the most challenge is really about how you manage that data, the privacy, the security around the data, who has access to it, how we anonymize it, and how we manage that. And then who else has access to it, right? There's obvious and real concerns about, do insurance companies get access to that information? If you're setting that up for your elderly parents to age in the location, does the doctor, do the kids get it? Like, who all has access to the information? How do we set that up in a way that makes sense for everyone? But there's some really, really interesting innovations happening in this space. And I would think that in the next kind of 12 months, we're really going to start to see some of those become really commercialized and really start to scale out in the market.
Yeah. Julie, any thoughts here from the Microsoft side?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a lot of the same things that Tess was mentioning. In fact, we're probably working with some of the same vendors that they are, because since Microsoft doesn't compete with Rogers, we need telco partners. So one of the areas that we've seen some really interesting use cases over the last couple of years has been, extending people's stay at home as opposed to bring them into an aging facility, which during the pandemic, we realized that we don't want to send our parents there unless absolutely necessary, because the limitations of visitations and all that. But certainly we've seen technology like a connected medical boot to see if people are wearing the medical boots for compliance. We've seen diabetic socks as well, having IoT sensors to detect if people are compliant with physical activity as necessary. If they are diabetic, we've seen connected insulin pumps. There's a variety of different devices on the marketplace, but then even within hospitals is being able to know when patients need to be moved to connected medical beds. Has the patient moved enough today? Well, if not, then we need to make sure we're dispatching somebody to go move that particular patient. So we are certainly seeing a lot of different types of technology, even in the healthcare sector.
Yeah, incredible. Here's a very interesting question. You've talked about the pandemic and forced disruption. What other kinds of events may cause further technology disruption? Laurence, do you want to start us off on that one?
Yeah, one of the things that I could see is, and it was brought up by the panel earlier, is to the shortage in workers. We see a high demand and need for our property managers, which we call community managers, and the fact that work-life balance that is very important to have them stay at their role, whichever it is. Technology really does have a part in that. So in our side alone, being able to have that preemptive approach and having the data, it could save a lot of time. It could also save a lot of communication mistakes when it comes to languages. But all these little things, the fact that there's businesses struggling with their labor force right now, technology could be a piece that would actually help entice and maintain that workforce within an organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems like a big area right now that technology needs to solve and help with. Elliot, do you have any thoughts on this one?
In terms of further disruption, other events that may cause it, there's so many potential, options that we can choose from, just in terms of ripple effects. If we're taking a look at, the pandemic alone as an example, the secondary effects that are going to come out of the pandemic, such as mental health issues, as well as potential environmental factors that were changed through, people spending an inordinate amount of times in front of screens that they have never done throughout their entire lives, and forming new patterns of operating, living, everything along those lines. I'd say that will actually have a more significant long-term effect in terms of disrupting what types of technologies, what type of access we'll need to, mental health care. You see even within the property technology space, you see even within certain developments, a lot of people are looking for some advantage within that space. So they're starting to create partnerships with, places like Johns Hopkins to be able to provide a clinical room, to be able to gain access to medical care at any point in time as an amenity. And some of these things are going to start to become more front and center as we start to see the ripple effects and the actual outcomes years down the road, which still we haven't even come close to seeing because it's still evolving.
Yeah, that ripple effect's going to be huge. Absolutely. I know we're running short on time. We've got one question left. I want to sneak in. With the concern privacy breach and the rising cost of cyber insurance due to the increased claims, how do you see your industries responding to the individual's concerns? And maybe Julie, if you could respond to that one.
Yeah, it's certainly the importance of IoT having strong security is going to be critical. That's why we are investing, $5 billion in IoT at Microsoft, and we're also investing $1 billion a year in cloud security alone. The importance of OT security is going to be critical as well. So making sure that any endpoints that are connected to cloud, including IoT devices, have OT security enabled, and that you're doing some discovery to make sure that you're doing threat protection. Certainly, tying back to the previous question around what do I worry about, and in terms of what could be possible to disrupt, I think, a hack into the Canadian infrastructure or US infrastructure is probably something that would be of biggest concern. So making sure that as customers evolve into projects, that they're making security for IoT a top priority, and making sure that we can continue operating with energy every day. Same thing with the networks, for example, the telcos that need to provide connectivity.
Yeah, no. Hey, huge thank you to all the panelists. So much going on in this space. What an amazing time to be alive. So much information. Thanks for sharing the insights on the trends and the future. Really, really valuable information. I want to let everybody know our next presentation is with Rogers and Eddy Solutions, entitled Intelligent Infrastructure for an Intelligent World. So please join us there. And once again, thank you to all the panelists for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.